The emergency beacon had been broadcasting for 6 hours, and nobody was coming. Ambassador Thilway pressed her crystalline fingers against the cold metal wall of the gentle whisper, feeling the ship shudder with each failing system. Around her, 200 of her people huddled in the dim emergency lighting. The Marathi were never built for crisis. Their hollow bones and delicate silver skin had evolved on a world of soft breezes and gentle rains. They were diplomats, artists, and singers. They were not survivors. Through the cracked viewport, 3 Crevan raider ships circled like sharks around bleeding prey. They were in no hurry. They never were. The Crevan were Class 7 Deathworlders, massive scaled predators from a world of volcanic heat and constant violence. They hunted weaker species for sport and resources. The Marathi at Class 2 were the weakest sapient species in the known galaxy. "Ambassador," Commander Osarath said quietly, his voice tight with shame. "The other species have responded to our distress call." Thilway looked up with hope in her large, dark eyes. "Rescue ships." "Condolences." Osarath's jaw tightened. "The Fenari express sorrow for our loss. The Breathican Consortium offers prayers to their ancestors on our behalf. The Galactic Council has logged our situation and will investigate our disappearance within 30 standard days." "They are not coming," Thilway whispered. "They cannot. The Crevan are Deathworlders. No Class 5 or below species would survive engaging them." Osarath paused. "There is one response we have not opened. It came on an unusual frequency." "Show me." The message was brief, text only, in a language their translation systems barely recognized. It had been sent from a small vessel called the Stalwart, registered to a species that had only joined galactic society 47 years ago. "Humans." Thilway had never met a human. Few had. They were new to the galaxy and kept mostly to themselves, though strange rumors followed them everywhere. They came from a Class 9 world. They breathed a corrosive atmosphere. They consumed poison for pleasure. Most species avoided them out of polite fear. "What does their message say?" Thilway asked. Osarath read it aloud. "Marathi vessel, we received your distress call. Hold your position. We are coming. Arrival time 4 hours." "That is all. That is all." Thilway stared at the words. No condolences, no prayers, no apologies for circumstances beyond their control. Just a simple promise from a species she had never met. "We are coming." A small voice interrupted her thoughts. "Ambassador." Thilway turned to see young Peluin, barely 10 cycles old, clutching a torn piece of fabric that had once been her comfort blanket. The child's eyes were wide with fear. "Is someone coming to help us?" Peluin asked. Thilway hesitated. She wanted to protect the child from false hope, but something about that human message felt different. It was not the response of a species calculating odds or weighing political consequences. It was the response of someone who had already made a decision. "Yes," Thilway said softly, "someone is coming." "Are they nice?" Thilway thought about what little she knew of humans. The stories were contradictory. They were predators with forward-facing eyes and visible muscles. They came from a world that tried to kill them every day. They were violent, territorial, and had invented more weapons than any species in recorded history. But they were also the only ones who had said yes. "I do not know," Thilway admitted, "but they answered when no one else would." On the other side of the viewport, the Crevan ships continued their patient circling. They had detected the human vessel on long-range sensors, of course. But a single small ship crewed by a dozen soft-skinned bipeds was not a threat. It was an appetizer. The Crevan pack leader, Grothix, watched the approaching vessel with casual interest. He had heard of humans, these new creatures from a death world. But the galaxy had many death worlds, and Grothix had conquered prey from most of them. These humans were simply another species that had not yet learned their place in the food chain. He would teach them. 4 hours later, the human ship dropped out of hyperspace directly between the Crevan raiders and the wounded Marathi vessel. It was small, battered, and covered in scars from previous battles. It looked like it had been through hell and had not bothered to wash off the ash. The communications array crackled to life. A female voice spoke in calm, measured tones. Creven vessels, this is Lieutenant Priya Nair of the Earth Response Vessel Stalwart. You have exactly 60 seconds to withdraw from this area. This is not a negotiation. This is not a request. You have attacked a vessel under our protection. Leave now, or we will make you leave. Grothix laughed, a deep rumbling sound that echoed through his bridge. Protection? A single tiny ship was claiming protection over prey that was not even their species. He opened a return channel. Little human, you are far from home. Go back to your death world and tell your people what happens to those who interfere with a Creven hunt. There was a pause, then the human spoke again. 53 seconds. Grothix stopped laughing. Observer Fenwick had made a terrible mistake. The feathered Avalix diplomat had been assigned to the human vessel as part of a cultural exchange program. It was supposed to be a simple observation mission. Spend 30 days with humans, document their behavior, and report back to the Galactic Council. Easy work for an academic who had spent his career studying primitive species. But the humans were not primitive. They were something else entirely. Fenwick clutched his data tablet with trembling claws as the stalwart raced toward the Creven raiders. Around him, the human crew prepared for battle with casual efficiency. They checked weapons, ran diagnostics, and shared jokes that Fenwick's translator could not properly interpret. They were about to engage Class 7 Deathworlders, and they were laughing. "You look nervous, observer," said Sergeant Dmitry Volkov, a massive human male with more scars than Fenwick had feathers. "First combat situation." "I have observed 17 military engagements," Fenwick replied, his voice higher than he intended. "All from safe distances, with proper evacuation protocols." "Evacuation?" Dmitry smiled, which was somehow more frightening than the weapons he was loading. "Where is the fun in that?" Fenwick did not find any of this fun. He had been documenting human behavior for 3 weeks now, and each day brought new horrors. Humans consumed a bitter poison called coffee that would kill most species in small doses. They exercised voluntarily in gravity that would crush Fenwick's bones to powder. They slept for only 6 to 8 hours, which meant they were awake and dangerous for most of their daily cycle. And they were small. That was the truly unsettling part. The Creven were massive, scaled, built for killing. Humans were soft-skinned, relatively fragile, and lacked natural weapons like claws or fangs. By all logical standards, they should not be apex predators. But logic had failed Fenwick weeks ago. Lieutenant Priya Nair entered the bridge, her dark eyes scanning the tactical display. She was shorter than most humans, with close-cropped hair and a face that rarely showed emotion. Fenwick had watched her run 10 kilometers every morning, sleep 4 hours a night, and process information faster than his species could blink. "Status report," she said. Corporal Louis Reyes pulled up the sensor data. 3 Creven raiders, standard hunting formation. The Marathi vessel has maybe 2 hours of life support remaining, approximately 200 survivors. Weapons. Full complement, they are not expecting a fight. They are about to get one. Priya turned to Dr. Amara Okonkwo, the ship's medical officer. "Doctor, what can you tell me about Marathi physiology?" Amara pulled up holographic diagrams. "They are extremely fragile. Hollow bones, thin skin, evolved in low gravity. Our normal movements could bruise or break them. We will need to handle them like glass." "Understood," briefed the team. "No one touches a Marathi without training." Fenwick watched this exchange with growing confusion. The humans were not just preparing for battle. They were preparing for rescue. They were planning to fight Deathworlders and save creatures made of crystal and air, and they were discussing it like a routine maintenance check. "Lieutenant," Fenwick said carefully, "may I ask a question?" "Go ahead." "Why?" Priya looked at him. "Why what?" "Why are you doing this? The Marathi are not your species. They are not your allies. The Galactic Council has no mutual defense treaty with Earth. There is no political or economic benefit to this action. The logical response is to file a report and continue your patrol route. Priya considered the question. Then she crossed to the viewport and looked out at the distant glow of the Crevan ships. 23 years ago, she said, my colony was raided by pirates, 1,200 people. We sent distress calls to every species within range. Do you know how many responded? How many? None. They calculated the risks and decided we were not worth saving. My parents died in that raid. My sister died. I survived because I hid in a ventilation shaft for 3 days, drinking recycled water and listening to people scream. Fenwick said nothing. When I joined the response corps, I made a promise. I will never be the species that sends condolences instead of ships. I will never calculate the value of a life and decide it costs. Too much to save. She turned back to face him. Those Marathi sent a distress call. They asked for help. That is all the reason I need. The countdown timer hit 0. The stalwart's engines roared as the ship accelerated toward the Crevan formation. Fenwick gripped his seat restraints as G-forces pressed him backward. The humans around him moved with practiced precision, calling out readings and adjustments like they had done this 1,000 times. Because they had. Fenwick began typing rapidly on his tablet. His report to the Galactic Council would need significant revision. Humans were not just another Deathworld species. They were not mindless predators or violent primitives. They were something far more dangerous. They were protectors. The first Crevan plasma blast struck the stalwart's shields, and the battle began. Pack leader Grothix had killed 17 species. He had hunted the armored Brethicans in their mountain fortresses. He had chased the swift Kalori across 3 star systems. He had broken the proud Vaneth Empire and sold their survivors to the highest bidder. The galaxy knew his name and feared it. So when the tiny human ship fired its first volley, Grothix felt only amusement. Return fire, he ordered. Disable their engines. I want them alive for questioning. His gunners obeyed. Plasma cannons lit up the void between ships, slamming into the stalwart's shields with enough force to crack a moon. The human vessel shuddered, sparks flying from its damaged hull. But it did not stop. Instead, it accelerated, directly toward the Crevan formation. What are they doing? Grothix muttered. His tactical officer checked the readings twice. Pack leader, they are closing distance. Their weapons are charging. Impossible. Their shields are failing. A direct assault would be suicide. But the humans were not suicidal. They were strategic. The stalwart plunged between 2 Crevan ships, forcing them to cease fire or risk hitting each other. In that moment of hesitation, the human vessel unleashed a weapon the Crevan had never seen before. Persistence cannons. Most species built weapons for killing blows. Single massive strikes designed to end fights quickly. Humans had evolved differently. They came from a world where prey was faster, stronger, and better armed than they were, so humans had learned to chase, to wound, to wear down their targets over hours, days, or weeks until exhaustion did. What strength could not? The persistence cannons did not aim to destroy. They aimed to cripple. Precise shots struck engine ports, sensor arrays, and communication dishes. Each hit was small, almost trivial, but they kept coming. And coming. And coming. They are not stopping, the tactical officer said, his voice rising with something Grothix had never heard from his crew before. Fear. Pack leader, they are not stopping. Grothix watched the human vessel dance between his ships, taking hits that should have killed it, absorbing damage that would have broken any other species. Its hull was scorched and bleeding atmosphere. Its shields flickered like dying stars, but its weapons never stopped firing. On the bridge of the stalwart, Lieutenant Priya Nair tasted blood where she had bitten her cheek during an impact. Alarms screamed from every console. The ship's structural integrity was at 40% and falling. She did not care. Lewis, status on their navigation systems. Corporal Reyes worked his console with bleeding fingers. Give me 30 seconds. Their encryption is primitive. You have 20. Dmitry Volkov fired the forward guns, sending another volley into the nearest Crevan ship's engine block. A shrapnel burst caught his arm, slicing through his sleeve and into muscle. He grunted, wrapped the wound with one hand, and kept firing with the other. Fenwick watched this from his corner of the bridge, his data tablet forgotten. He had studied predator species across the galaxy. He had documented hunting behaviors, pack tactics, and kill strategies. None of it had prepared him for this. The Crevan were predators. They hunted because it was in their nature. But humans hunted differently. They did not fight to prove dominance or satisfy instinct. They fought with cold, calculated patience. They endured pain that would break other species. They took damage and converted it into rage, and that rage fueled them forward. They were not attacking the Crevan. They were hunting them. Navigation hacked, Lewis announced, sending their lead ship into their wingman now. Two Crevan vessels suddenly veered toward each other, their pilots screaming in confusion as their controls failed. The collision was not fatal, but it disabled both ships, leaving them spinning helplessly in the void. Grothic stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Two of his three ships were crippled. His pack, which had never lost a hunt, was being systematically dismantled by a single vessel crewed by soft-skinned creatures half his size. "Full retreat," he ordered, the words burning his throat like acid. "All ships full retreat. Pack leader, we cannot abandon the hunt. The shame will be less than extinction. Move." The remaining Crevan ship turned and fled, but the stalwart pursued. Its damaged engines screamed in protest, but the humans pushed them beyond their limits, closing the distance with impossible speed. "Lieutenant," Dmitry called out, "they are running." Priya's eyes were cold. "They started this, we finish it." But before the stalwart could deliver the killing blow, the Crevan ship broadcast a signal that had never been sent by their species in recorded history. "Surrender." The word echoed through both bridges. Grothic slumped in his command chair, the fight draining out of him. His species did not surrender. They won or they died. There was no middle ground. Until now. Priya stared at the surrender signal for a long moment. Her finger hovered over the weapon's console. Part of her, the part that had hidden in a ventilation shaft for 3 days, wanted to finish what the Crevan had started. But that was not why she was here. "Stand down," she ordered. "Secure the Crevan vessel, and someone get me a damage report on the Marathi ship. We still have 200 people to save." The battle was over. The rescue was just beginning. The airlock hissed open, and Sergeant Dmitry Volkov stepped onto the Marathi vessel. He stopped immediately. The gravity was wrong, too light, like walking on a cloud. The air was thin and cold, burning his lungs with each breath. The emergency lighting was painfully bright, designed for eyes more sensitive than his. Everything about this ship was built for creatures made of glass and starlight. And Dmitry was a 2-meter wall of muscle and scar tissue from a planet that specialized in creating nightmares. "Remember the briefing," Dr. Amara Okonkwo said through his earpiece. "Marathi bones are hollow. Their skin tears under pressure that would not even bruise us. Move slowly, speak softly. We are giants in a world of butterflies." Dmitry nodded and began walking, each step carefully measured to avoid cracking the delicate floor panels beneath his boots. The first Marathi he encountered screamed. It was Ambassador Thilway, pressed against a corridor wall, her crystalline skin flickering with colors that his translator identified as pure terror. She was looking at him like he was a monster from her worst nightmares. He stopped. He raised his hands, palms open, showing he held no weapons. "Ambassador Thilway," he said, keeping his voice low. "I am Sergeant Dmitry Volkov of the Earth Response Vessel Stalwart. We are here to rescue you." Thilway's translator processed his words, but her fear did not fade. She was staring at his eyes, forward-facing, predator eyes, the eyes of a creature built to hunt. "You are human," she whispered. "Yes. You destroyed the Crevan ships." "Most of them. One surrendered." Surrendered, Thilway's fear flickered into confusion. The Creven do not surrender. They do now. Something shifted in the ambassador's expression. Not trust exactly, but curiosity. She had called for help and a monster had answered. But the monster was speaking gently and standing perfectly still, trying not to frighten her. "How many of you are there?" she asked. 12, plus one Avalix observer who is currently having a crisis about his understanding of the universe. 12, Thilway almost laughed. 12 of you destroyed a Creven hunting pack. 13 would have been showing off. Behind Thilway, more Marathi began to appear. They were huddled in groups, clutching each other for comfort, their large, dark eyes fixed on the human who had invaded their space. Children hid behind adults. Elders trembled with age and fear. 200 of them. 200 creatures made of crystal and music, about to be carried to safety by predators from a death world. Dmitri activated his communicator. "Lieutenant, we have contact with survivors, beginning evacuation." Over the next hour, the humans moved through the gentle whisper with surgical precision. They worked in pairs, one human guiding while the other carried. Each Marathi was treated like precious cargo, cradled in arms that could bend steel but chose instead to be gentle. Dr. Okonkwo found the medical bay first. A dozen Marathi lay on tables, wounded from the initial attack. Their injuries were severe by their standards but minor by human measures. Cuts that would heal on a human in days would take months for a Marathi to recover from. She worked quickly, applying human medical technology to alien physiology. Bandages designed for soldiers were adjusted for skin that bruised at a touch. Painkillers were diluted to 1/10 strength. Every treatment was a careful balance between helping and harming. Dmitri found the children last. They were hiding in a cargo bay, 30 of them, ranging from infants to adolescents. Their caretaker had died in the attack, and they had been alone in the dark for hours, waiting for monsters to find them. Now a monster had found them, but not the kind they expected. Dmitri crouched down, making himself as small as his massive frame allowed. The children scattered back, pressing against the far wall, their colors shifting through shades of terror. He did not move closer. He did not speak. Instead, he did something that surprised even himself. He started to hum. It was an old song, something his grandmother had sung to him when he was a boy in the cold Russian winters. A lullaby about snow and stars and warmth. His voice was rough, untrained, nothing like the musical perfection the Marathi were famous for. But it was soft and it was kind. One child stopped crying, then another. They did not understand the words, but they understood the tone. This giant creature with scars and predator eyes was trying to comfort them. A tiny Marathi girl stepped forward. She was barely knee-high to Dmitri, with skin that shimmered like morning frost. Her name, he would later learn, was Peluin. She reached up and touched his hand. Her fingers were impossibly delicate, like holding a snowflake. Dmitri did not move. He barely breathed. "Are you the one who came to save us?" Peluin asked. "Yes." "Were you scared of the bad ones?" Dmitri thought about the Creven, their massive ships and plasma cannons, their reputation as the galaxy's deadliest hunters. "No," he said honestly, "I was scared of hurting you." Peluin considered this. Then she smiled, a small expression that lit up her entire face. "You are a good monster," she decided. One by one, the children approached, and one by one, Dmitri carried them to safety, humming his grandmother's lullaby the entire way. Ambassador Thilway watched from the corridor, tears streaming down her crystalline face. She had asked the universe for help. The universe had sent her monsters, and the monsters were gentle. The last Marathi survivor had just been transferred to the stalwart when the sensors screamed. 3 contacts, Creven warships, fresh, undamaged, and hungry. Lieutenant Priya Nair studied the tactical display with calm eyes. The stalwart was battered. Its shields barely functional, its hull held together by emergency welds and stubborn engineering. Half her crew was injured. Their ammunition was low. Their engines were running on backup power. And now they were facing reinforcements. In his cell, Pack Leader Grothix smiled for the first time since his surrender. "My brothers have arrived, human. You won one battle. You will not win two." Priya ignored him. She was already calculating options. The stalwart could run. Its engines, even damaged, were faster than Crevan cruisers over short distances. If they abandoned the Marathi survivors, they might escape. She did not consider that option for more than a second. "All hands battle stations," she announced. "We are not leaving." Observer Fenwick looked up from his corner. "Lieutenant, with respect, that is not tactically sound. Your vessel cannot survive another engagement. The logical choice is strategic withdrawal." The logical choice would have been to ignore the distress call in the first place. Priya turned to face him. "We did not come here to be logical. We came here to save people. Those Marathi are under our protection now. The Crevan want them, they go through us." "You will die." "Maybe," Priya shrugged, "but we will make it expensive." She opened a ship-wide channel. "Listen up. We have 200 civilians on board who are counting on us. They have already been through hell today, and they are watching to see what we do next. We can run and prove that humans are no different from every other species that abandoned them, or we can stand and show the galaxy what Deathworlders are really made of." She paused. "I am not running. Anyone who wants to is welcome to take an escape pod. No judgment." Silence, then Dimitri's voice came through, calm and steady. "Running is boring anyway." "I have not finished my report," Fenwick said quietly. "I would prefer to see how this ends." Dr. Okonkwo checked her medical supplies. "I did not patch everyone up just to watch them die. Let us do this." Lewis cracked his knuckles. Their encryption was garbage. Maybe their tactics are too. Priya smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a predator who had chosen her ground. "Then let us give them a fight worth remembering." The Crevan reinforcements closed in, their commander broadcasting on all frequencies. "Human vessel, surrender the Marathi and the traitor Grothix. You will be allowed to leave." Priya opened a return channel. "Counteroffer. Turn around and go home. Tell your people what happened here today. Tell them that one human ship broke your hunting pack and made your pack leader beg for mercy. And tell them that if they ever threaten a species under our protection again, we will not stop at one ship. You are bluffing. Your vessel is crippled." "Then come and find out." The Crevan ships accelerated. The stalwart turned to meet them, its damaged hull groaning with the strain. In the cargo bay, Ambassador Thilway held young Peluan close, both of them watching through a viewport as the humans prepared to die for strangers. "Why are they doing this?" Peluan whispered. Thilway did not have an answer. The first exchange of fire lit up the void. The stalwart took hits that should have killed it, but its crew refused to acknowledge the damage. They fought like wounded animals, striking at engines and weapons with desperate precision. 2 Crevan ships peeled off, damaged but not destroyed. The third pressed the attack. "Shields are gone," Lewis reported. "Hull breaches on decks 2 and 4. We are venting atmosphere." "Seal the breaches, keep firing." "Lieutenant, we are out of persistence rounds." Priya's jaw tightened, then ram them. The stalwart lurched forward, its engines burning beyond their limits. The Crevan ship tried to evade, but the human vessel was faster, driven by something that transcended mechanical power. Just before impact, Lewis shouted from his console. "Contact, multiple contacts, human signatures." Space tore open. 12 ships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. Earth military vessels, heavy cruisers and destroyers, their weapons already charged and targeting the Crevan. The lead ship broadcast a single message. "Stalwart, this is the ESV Unyielding. Sorry we are late, we brought friends." The Crevan reinforcements stopped. They looked at the battered stalwart, still accelerating toward them, still refusing to die. They looked at the 12 fresh warships spreading out to surround them. And they ran. Priya slumped in her command chair, exhaustion finally catching up with her. Around her, the crew was cheering, hugging, some of them crying. They had done it. They had held the line. Fenwick approached her cautiously. "Lieutenant, may I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "When the reinforcements arrived and you ordered the ram, did you actually intend to collide with them?" Priya looked at him with eyes that had seen too much death and chosen life anyway. "Ask me again when I have slept." Fenwick nodded slowly. He was beginning to understand humans. They were not just deathworlders. They were something far more terrifying. They were the species that would rather die than abandon someone who needed them. The medical station orbited a neutral world, its white hull gleaming against the stars. Inside, 200 Marathi survivors received treatment from the best doctors the Galactic Council could provide. Outside, the battered stalwart floated alongside its sister ships, finally allowed to rest. Ambassador Thilway stood in the observation deck, watching the human vessels through the viewport. She had spent the last 3 days trying to understand what had happened. Her people were alive. The Creven were defeated, and everything she thought she knew about the galaxy had been shattered. The door behind her opened. Lieutenant Priya Nair entered, her arm in a sling and fresh bandages visible beneath her uniform collar. "Ambassador, you asked to see me." Thilway turned to face her. The human was smaller than she remembered. During the battle, during the rescue, Priya had seemed like a force of nature. Now she looked tired, human, breakable. But her eyes were the same, calm, steady, and absolutely certain. "I wanted to thank you," Thilway said, "and to ask you something." "Thank me first. I enjoy gratitude." Despite everything, Thilway smiled. "You saved my people. You fought deathworlders for strangers. You almost died for creatures you had never met. On behalf of the Marathi Collective, I offer our eternal gratitude." Priya nodded. "You are welcome. Now what is your question?" Thilway paused, gathering her thoughts. This question had been building since the moment she first saw the human ship drop out of hyperspace. Since she watched Dmitri hum lullabies to frightened children. Since she saw 12 more ships arrive to save a crew that refused to run. "What are you?" she asked quietly. "Truly, what are you?" Priya considered the question. She walked to the viewport and looked out at the stars, at the ships floating in the darkness, at the galaxy that still did not understand the new species in its midst. "We are from Earth," she said. "A world that tried to kill us every day of our existence. Our planet has earthquakes that swallow cities, storms that flatten. Mountains, predators in every ocean and forest. Diseases that evolve faster than we can cure them. Extreme heat, extreme cold, and an atmosphere that would poison most species in the galaxy." She turned back to face Thilway. "We learned to fight. We had to, but fighting was never enough. We also learned to work together, to protect each other, to build tribes and families and nations that stood against the darkness. Because on Earth, the only way to survive was to make sure your people survived too." "But we are not your people," Thilway said. "We are strangers." "You were strangers," Priya corrected. "Then you sent a distress call, you asked for help, and when you did that, you became ours to protect." "Just like that? Just like that?" Thilway struggled to comprehend this. In the galaxy she knew, species looked out for themselves. Alliances were built on politics and profit. No one risked everything for strangers, especially strangers as weak and worthless as the Marathi. "Most species would call that foolish," she said. "Most species are not deathworlders." The door opened again. Dmitri entered with young Peluan riding on his shoulders. The massive human moved carefully, his steps measured to avoid jostling his tiny passenger. Peluan was laughing, her crystalline skin shifting through colors of pure joy. "Ambassador," Dmitri said, nodding respectfully. "The little one wanted to say goodbye before we ship out." Peluan waved from her perch. "The good monster is leaving." Thilway felt her heart crack a little. "Leaving." "Another distress call," Priya explained. "A colony on the outer rim, unknown attackers, we deploy in 2 hours." "You just finished one battle. Your ship is barely holding together. Our ship will hold together long enough, and those colonists do not have 2 hours to wait for a fresher crew. Peluan tugged on Dimitri's hair. Can I come with you? Not this time, little one. Maybe when you are older. Promise. Dimitri smiled, and for a moment the scarred warrior disappeared. In his place was simply a kind man who had learned to be gentle. I promise. He lifted Peluan from his shoulders and set her down carefully beside Thilway. The child immediately grabbed the ambassador's hand, but her eyes stayed fixed on the human. Come back and visit, Peluan asked. Always. Observer Fenwick appeared in the doorway, his feathers ruffled from what had clearly been a very long. Report writing session. Lieutenant, the Council has received my preliminary findings. They are having difficulty categorizing your species. What did you tell them? Fenwick consulted his tablet. I told them that humans are not merely deathworlders. You are what I have termed guardian predators, apex hunters who have chosen to use their evolutionary gifts not for conquest but for protection. You are the species that runs toward danger when others run away. You are the ones who answer. Priya nodded slowly. That will do. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. Ambassador, one more thing. If your people ever need help again, you know how to reach us. The frequency is always open. Then she was gone, Dimitri following behind her, already discussing tactical approaches for their next mission. Thilway watched them go. Beside her, Peluan waved until the humans disappeared around the corner. Ambassador, the child asked, are there more like them? Thilway thought about it. Somewhere in the galaxy, another distress call was going out. Another species was facing extinction. Another impossible situation with no hope of rescue. And somewhere, a human vessel was changing course. Yes, she said softly, there are more, and as long as there are calls for help, they will keep answering. The galaxy had been afraid of Deathworlders for millions of years. Now it was learning to hope for them instead.